Hello, welcome to Shrewsbury Film Society's online film club. Our choice this time is Alfred Hitchcock and North by Northwest. Hitchcock was born in the 19th century, believe it or not, just at the end of 1899 and lived until 1980. And in his 81 years, he made more than 50 feature films. As some of you will know, for most of them, he managed to appear very briefly in them himself. With this one, it's particularly easy to spot, actually. Within about the first 5 minutes, you'll notice the distinctive Hitchcock getting onto a bus. This film came as part of a run of really remarkable films that Hitchcock made from the early 50s through to the early 60s. In 1951, he made Strangers on a Train. In 1954 came Rear Window. Then in 58 came Vertigo. In 59, this one, North by Northwest. In 1960, Psycho. And in 1963, The Birds. It was really an extraordinary run of 6 very remarkable and really quite different films. So whereas, for example, Psycho is genuinely terrifying, even on repeated viewings, North by Northwest is very much a caper and an entertainment, and has got a fair number of laughs in it as well. Hitchcock was unusual, I suppose, in being one of the very few film directors who's actually well known. He had name recognition, he was distinctive both through his cameos and through his Alfred Hitchcock Presents on television, and in the way he marketed himself as part of the process of marketing his films. And yet at the same time, as well as being very successful commercially and artistically, he was also enormously admired by other film directors and by film critics, particularly in France. In fact, Francois Truffaut, one of the key figures in the French New Wave in the 1960s, spent a long time interviewing Hitchcock, produced a very substantial book and a film based on their interviews. And in 2012, when Sight and Sound magazine did its poll of film critics around the world to pick the best ever top 100, Hitchcock's Vertigo actually came out on top, picked by the critics as the best film ever made. So Hitchcock really addresses all audiences. He addresses the sophisticated critics, he addresses the ordinary punters, and he provides absolutely masses of entertainment on screen. Apart from the sheer entertainment value of his films and the extreme quality of all the technicalities that went into them, so they flow beautifully, the colours are glorious, the camera work is extremely engaging, and so on. There are probably 4 or 5 key features that mark most of his best work. One is certainly the way the plot can shift very dramatically, and it's often not clear for quite a long way through the film what sort of film you're actually watching. So if you've seen Psycho, for example, you'll know that for about the first half an hour, it appears to be a heist movie. It appears to be a young couple who've stolen money from her employer and are on the run. And only after about half an hour does it turn into something completely different. Similarly, actually, North by Northwest has in some ways quite an uneven tone, because it starts off looking like it's going to be a thriller, and yet it soon becomes the case that the plot has got so many holes in it, you cease to even think about how much sense it's supposed to make, and you just enjoy one really bravura set piece after another. The second characteristic, of course, of Hitchcock is that there is a lot of suspense. Even when you know that the lead characters can't possibly be written out of the film at an early stage, you do wonder how are they going to get out of that scrape now. Thirdly, there's what Hitchcock himself called the MacGuffin, by which he meant he tended to put in plot devices that were there to throw us off the scent, sort of red herrings in effect, and there's a quite significant one in North by Northwest. The next theme, I suppose, is Hitchcock's fascination with blonde women. So Gene Kelly in Rear Window, Ingrid Bergman in Notorious, Janet Leigh, of course, in Psycho, Kim Novak in Vertigo, and Eva Marie Saint in this one, in North by Northwest. There is a lot that you can read up on, speculating on why he was just quite so obsessed with the women and why he wanted them to look exactly one particular way. It's actually quite disturbing, I think, when you watch him try to remake, or his character try to remake Kim Novak, particularly in Vertigo, to fit a very predetermined notion of what a glamorous blonde should look like. There was also, rather oddly, his mother fixation. Of course, Anthony Perkins in Psycho, but also in this film, North by Northwest, our lead character, Cary Grant, is accompanied by his mother at various points and certainly consults her a lot more than you might expect. There's something interesting going on there. And then finally, I think it's worth mentioning the music by Bernard Herrmann, which was long associated with Hitchcock, although Herrmann did go on to work with many other directors, including Martin Scorsese, for example, famously in Taxi Driver, amongst others. But I think above all, North by Northwest is really a film of phenomenally good set pieces. We all know about the plane trying to mow down Cary Grant in the big empty wheat field. We know about the climb over Mount Rushmore, but there are actually many other delights in this at all. And there's so much energy and enthusiasm and seamlessness, I think, in the way the film is put together, that even if when you stop to think, the logic of moving from one scene to another doesn't really make that much sense, you're carried along in the film. And although a number of people have complained over the years that it's much too long, 2.25 hours, or almost 2.25 hours, it seems to me actually that time passes very quickly just because of the kind of bravura energy there is in the film. And one other interesting thing to note is some of the other members of the cast who cropped up in other places over the years. In particular, I think if you look for Martin Landau, many years later he appeared in this Woody Allen film, Crimes and Misdemeanors. He's actually the lead character in it, and it just strikes me as an amusing thought that this wouldn't have been such a bad title for North by Northwest as well, since it does seem to be full of quite a lot of crimes and misdemeanors. Well, we hope you enjoy it, and we hope you'll be able to join us on Zoom to discuss it in a couple of weeks' time.